Joining me now is Jane Mayer, Chief Washington Correspondent for The New Yorker, and Shan Wu, who is a former federal prosecutor. Thank you both for being here. And Jane, I'm going to start with you. How serious is this investigation getting for the former president?
You know, I think it is quite serious. They've got some of the best lawyers in the country working on this investigation. And, you know, while Trump may not be on the national scene anymore, I think he's very much in the sights of the DA at this point. You can see that they're working intensely. They've got millions of pages of his tax records, 8 years worth of them, and they're just poring over it and trying to look at every single angle. So I think it's quite serious.
Yeah, Stairs and Berlusconi. I mean, he may want to look at, South Korea, Italy, other places. They've prosecuted former presidents. Mr. Wu, thank you so much for being here. I want to play Jennifer Weisselberg. So she's pretty close to the center of gravity here. Her ex-husband was, one of Weisselberg's sons. And here she is talking about how Trump used gifts to exert control over people. Take a listen.
They control people by compensating you with homes and things, and then it's hard to leave an organization when, for example, they pay for my children's tuition or they're compensating a gift such as the apartment. It's not easy to walk away when they provide your home.
And Mr. Wu, this reminded me a lot of when I read Mary Trump's book, and and she talked about how the family would live almost rent-free but have almost no other perks, but they were so dependent on Trump. Where might the crimes be in the way that he doled out money, or is this just drama around what the real crimes are?
Well, the crimes would be in the evaluation of, for example, they can exert pressure on the family members if they properly reported this on their taxes. Were they treating it as a business expense? That's where their exposure comes. And I'll tell you, Joy, I've defended white-collar criminals and I've prosecuted them. If they have your family members, that's a lot of leverage on the potential defendant. It's a lot of leverage on Mr. Weisselberg to cooperate, and that's a very powerful tool to use that they're potentially putting his family members under duress.
Yeah, indeed. Tim O'Brien, Jane, I used to have him on a lot on my weekend show, and he would say all the time, if they ever get Weisselberg to flip, that's when Trump is really sunk. And here it's not the Weisselberg, but it's a Weisselberg. It's the former daughter-in-law. Here she is again. There's another piece of this interview, and she says that her father-in-law actually didn't like being at the forefront of the company once Trump became president. Take a listen.
I think when he was handed the company along with Don Jr. and Eric, it was not comfortable for him to be shoved into the limelight. I never understood if he was uncomfortable with that or if he didn't want to have to be so vulnerable when I think it's clear that they don't follow the law or rules that apply to most of us.
Jane, just in your reporting, give us a sense of take the temperature of the reticence level of someone like Cy Vance, who is, he's almost finished with his term, or the level of potential aggression that might produce in terms of trying to produce a prosecution. This is a former president of the United States. There are huge political implications if he were to be indicted. It would be sort of a nuclear bomb going off in our politics. How much, just in your reporting, does that weigh on what might happen here to Donald Trump in terms of what he might have done on tax fraud or insurance fraud or messing with the money?
I mean, people who are close to him or formerly close to him, people like Michael Cohen, his former lawyer, have said that Cy Vance's investigation is the thing that keeps Donald Trump up at night. And I mean, and already there's talk, it's interesting, in Trump's circles in Palm Beach, among some of his friends, that, he's desperate enough, or at least they are, to have given some thought to the idea that they might actually have the governor of Florida try to defy any sort of warrant there might be eventually for Trump's arrest. They've talked about the possibility that they might deny an extradition request. I think it's probably pie in the sky. The extradition requests are really something that's just kind of paperwork almost that the governor has to sign. I spoke to the state attorney in Palm Beach about it, and he said he said, you know, who knows? They thought that it was just paperwork really on January 6th to ratify the vote of the Electoral College, and anything could happen. But there is talk about these kind of extraordinary scenarios that could swirl around Trump in the future. I mean, and if that happened, he wouldn't be able to leave Florida. I mean, again, I think it's unlikely, very unlikely, but it's interesting to me that people are talking about things such as this.
That's illegal, right, Mr. Wu? That you can't just deny an extradition treaty. This isn't like when Congress called Donald Trump or his people to testify. You can't just ignore it, right?
Right, and I think it really shows the amount of desperation that Trump is feeling. I mean, he's been obfuscating for years, trying to avoid this. He's tried everything, and now, you know, he's really run out of options here. I mean, basically, you know, if you've got your lawyer who's going to testify against you, maybe your accountant, and they've got your taxes, that is 3 strikes and you're out, Joyce. So that is a very serious problem for him. And, you know, this talk about sort of almost like the bribery that's gone over the years for the family members buying that loyalty, that can certainly work for a long time. But you know when it doesn't work? It's when you're facing a grand jury subpoena or when your family members are facing jail. That money ain't going to do the trick anymore. So these folks are very likely to cooperate to save themselves at this point.
Chickens roosting. Jane Mayer, Shan Wu, thank you both.